Thank you for joining us so late on a Wednesday. My name is Saurabh. I'm a senior principal technologist here at AWS Support. In this session today, I'm joined by Tipu, who is my peer in AWS Support, and Dwight Biddle from Whoop. The title kind of gives you an impression what we're going to talk about. I have two learning objectives for you all today. We want to share with you how in AWS Support, we are evolving and transforming ourselves with AI. But also, if you have an organization that is in customer support or customer service, there are lessons that you can learn from our experiences as well, and kind of find some pathways that we have taken over the last year to deliver better experience for our customers. We're going to talk about why the need for transformation, what we have learned over the last 15 years delivering AWS support to our customers, and why this is a pivotal moment and what we have done. We will also hear from Dwight from Whoop on what does it lead to, how does customer benefit from those outcomes, and how we deliver for them. And then Tipu is going to share how we are doing using AI and building better systems that deliver better support and outcomes for our customers. So for ages, I've been in AWS support about 12 years now. When I joined, the cloud support over the last few years have been like firefighters, right? An event happens, you contact us, we help you get over that event. It's a very heroic thing. It's not something that's scalable. A problem sparks, an alarm goes off, your team investigates, you contact us, we tell you where there might be a problem. Those are the things where customers continuously tell us that we need more. If you look at this image I'm showing, anybody, if you can raise your hand, if you are familiar with this, what does it look like? This is how kind of our early days of support was in 2010. This is an old version of AWS forums. When we launched AWS, customers like yourself will ask us technical questions via our forums, and our product teams and engineering teams will kind of respond to that, right? At that time, cloud was still shaping up. There was the POCs and projects happening in the cloud. That model kind of worked out. In the last 15 years, we heard from customers feedback about their needs, and we shaped up our product portfolio on what you see here. We had a developer support, business support, enterprise on-ramp, enterprise support. And then as you can see, we had additional offerings, IDR, Countdown, Premium. And all of those things were built from customer feedback. But this kind of gave us an opportunity that we are always reacting to the customer needs. And we really need to think aloud, with this AI innovation, can we get ahead of it? Can we build things for our customers? Let me give you a little bit overview of AWS support. We are about 15,000 people across 50 countries and 200 cities worldwide. We provide support for close to 250 plus AWS services, and all the launches that you heard about this week are going to be part of our portfolio. So the moment a service launches, you can contact us about anything about that service, break fix, guidance, and we provide you that support. The functional areas we cover: customer service, technical troubleshooting, proactive guidance, technical resilience, trust and safety, engineering, and product development. However, only a quarter of the interactions we receive are about break fix, where something literally is a fault on our side, where something just stopped working. In most of our transactions, what we hear from customers are either they did not use the service as intended, or they made an intentional, regrettable error using the service. And we always felt that there's more we can do with those customers. We can tell them proactively, looking at the environment, that the mistakes they are going to be made and prevent those mistakes from happening. One of the cultures in Amazon is around working backward. Whenever you think of a product, when you think of building something, you work backward from what does that customer experience look like, what is that need that we are going after. And as we engage with these customers, one thing was very clear. Cloud workloads today are not what they used to be 10 years ago when we think of kind of building cloud support. Today, they are distributed, multi-region, microservices-based. There are multiple dependencies across regions, across accounts, across ISVs, partners, and so on. And it is very hard for humans to react to that level of change. Customers are evolving, their needs are evolving, and we need to evolve with them. The first challenge we hear from customers is the complexity of cloud transformation today compared to what it used to be 5 years ago, 10 years ago, and what it will be in the next 5 years. The migration delays, the skills and expertise gap as rapidly AWS services and products are evolving, it's just complex to get your grasp around everything. The slow recovery and complex resolution, when there are issues, limited visibility, looking at them after the fact in a reactionary fashion, high incident recurrence rates, multiple hands-offs between either your teams and our teams, or your teams and your ISV teams, or your partner teams, and so on, and just manual troubleshooting processes, tribal knowledge, things that you document on your conferences, on your shared drives, that either get stale or don't get updated, and so on. The third challenge we hear about is security alert fatigue. You buy a security product from AWS or from anywhere, they show you, oh, you have 300 things you have to fix. And now you are more anxious than you were before. There's no clear guidance on, out of those 300 services or 300 issues, which one you should address at priority, which one are the ones that matter to your workload, which one are the ones that are impactful to your business that you should address. So we took a challenge, and we kind of said, our customers are telling us they want a near zero downtime. They want maximum resilience. They want maximum availability. They want zero impact maintenance windows. When we do internal maintenances, they want zero impact. And they want to be able to handle load as it scales up without having to kind of worry about provisioning resources, without having to kind of navigate that complexity. They want help in business continuity, disaster planning. You have your RTOs and RPOs that also vary from application to application. You have your compliance need, data backup and restoration. And all of this kind of becomes very hard. There are many dependencies that you are aware of. There are many dependencies that we have that you are not aware of. There are also context around how one service depends on another service. And all of that kind of makes it very complex. And customers want resilience. They want resilience within a region. They want resilience across region. And that changes from your application, your RTO, RPO. What are the failure modes that you are comfortable with? What are the failure modes that you absolutely do not want to experience? Building the redundancy in the design phase, planning phase, prevents the future incidents. And when issues do happen, our experience is that if you can mitigate those issues earlier in the life cycle, they are much cheaper and much less impactful. If we can detect architectural gap, resilience gap in the design phase, it is much, much cheaper to fix it there versus if you realize them in post-production. Because then you have to experience the outage, then do a maintenance, and update the environment and the architecture, and that's just not the experience our customers want. So from AWS Support, we took a challenge that we want to shift left. We don't want to be an organization that reacts or responds to when you have a problem. We want to partner with you and help you build faster and operate smarter. We want to detect issues before they impact your production. We want to work with you to build resilient architectures, show you where your gaps might be, and address those gaps. We want to use AI as much as we can for troubleshooting, for using your context to give you insights that you can actually act upon, that are contextual, that make sense, and are not just generic, and give you faster response time on our experts. When we know your applications, your architecture better, we can pull in the right resources from our side to help reduce that resolution time for the incidents. So we reimagined AWS Support to make our customers' operation effortless. We want to go beyond the table stakes, that how traditionally support has been done. We want to use AI as much as we can around troubleshooting, but it has to be accurate, it has to be contextual, it cannot just be generic, it has to be true, it has to help you move forward. We want to generate faster response time for critical incidents. We don't want you to spend time troubleshooting, then call us, and then get you an engineer who will help it. We want to provide security, guidance, and monitoring, and provide expert guidance on cloud events. When there's an event on AWS side, we want to give you an expert guidance so you can make informed decision. This week, if you missed the announcement, we launched Unified Operations. This is our newest top-tier plan, and it is designed for business-critical workload. We staff an experienced designated team around your operations. This team comprises of engineers, your technical account managers, incident event managers, and so on. We provide you 5-minute response on critical incidents. Expert engineers who have context of your environment and your workloads get engaged, start ruling out things and ruling in things where the issue might be, eventually leading to a reduced time to resolution. We partner with you early in the stage during onboarding to define these playbooks and runbooks so that we are well aware of the failure modes of your application. We are well aware of which are the teams on your side we need to pull in, which are the teams on our side we need to pull in, and document them in a way that humans can act on them, and so can AI. Our goal, again, is partner with you to help your workloads become more resilient, increase their uptime, and when there are incidents, reduce the time to resolution. We work with you on proactive risk management. We look at early warning signs and continuously resilience test your workload. If you adopt a new AWS service, we partner with you to show you all the risks and how to use that in the best resilient manner. We do tabletop and game day exercises with you to identify the gaps. And when event does happen, and it does, we engage the right experts from our team who are contextually aware about your environment. And we maintain that context, we hydrate it, and we share that with humans that are working on your incidents, and we share that with AI that's using to help troubleshoot. As we launched Unified Operations, we also looked at our entire portfolio of support plan. So we are not only, for our top tier mission-critical workloads, we got Unified Operations, but we are moving all of the support tiers we have into proactive space. We start with Business Support Plus, then Enterprise, and then Unified Operations. Earlier, I was showing you the slide with like 6 tables. That's also a complex. We don't want you to make decisions based on reactive or proactive. We moved all of our plans into the proactive space. Operational excellence at enterprise scale is hard. I talked about proactive guidance, rapid incident response, and continuous improvement. We feel across these three pillars, we can deliver a continuous life cycle where we not only prevent incidents from happening, we create a life cycle where we detect gaps that will lead to incidents, continuously optimize those, give you recommendations that should be implemented in your environment, and stop events from happening completely. Keep in mind, this is the same rigorous life cycle we use for our own AWS services and products. So we are taking the experience and knowledge that we have learned on how to run planet-scale services and feeding it back into customer workloads. Some of the things we do in this life cycle, we do operational readiness reviews. This is something every AWS service, before it goes GA or sees the light of the day, has to go through. It is a rigorous review that talks about all the known operational limitations and asks those hard questions, are you addressing those? We create application-specific runbooks with you. We help with load testing and find edge cases and failure modes. And it's not just that we do it one time, we continuously keep doing it to make sure that your workloads are always ahead of any known gaps. During the event, if something does happen, we take complete technical ownership. We provide live support. We pull in experts as needed from different AWS teams, also from different your teams. If there are lessons that we have learned from previous events, we implement those and make sure that the right people are available to help solve. And we provide a context-aware incident management. And we do retrospectives. When an event does happen, what are the lessons we could learn so that it never happens again? We look at post-incident reviews, RCAs, and so on, and make sure all those lessons kind of get fed back into your workload. So for your critical workloads, for your mission critical, where your business depends on them, we cooperate them with you. We learn about them. We make sure that they are always optimized. And we understand that all of this cannot be happen just by human. Now, if you are doing anything with AI in your journey, in your organizations, one thing you will notice is There's an age where you start with common chatbots, and you put a knowledge base behind a chatbot, and you get answers, which is kind of like AI assistants. Then you graduate into where you have AI kind of looking at your events and then augmenting a human. So human is taking some actions, and the human is still in control, but AI is kind of augmenting. And then the third tier is where you have autonomous AI, where AI is acting always in your environment, giving you recommendations, providing you insights that you should act upon, and then you can configure it so that you can take those actions based on the confidence that you have. And we have kind of embarked that in our support lifecycle as well. So in our organization, as I was talking about, we have autonomous agents, we have support AI that we have built that you can experience in the console starting this week, and we have our frontline staff that have access to all the knowledge that we have gained over the decades via their own chat agents that they co-partner with. So it's not just that we are delivering this for you, we are actually using AI, embracing it in our organization to actually deliver better outcomes for our customers. As we dealt with AI and we kind of use it, one thing we learned was context is key. And the AI is as good as the data behind it. And if we just train something on all the things that happened in the past, but we did not add a context around you, your workloads, your application-specific details, sometimes it could lead to chaos versus intelligence. We could see symptoms, so we may not be able to recognize patterns. And that's why we invested in our own capabilities that kind of manage and keep that context. As I was explaining, as we onboard your workloads, we capture that context, we hydrate it. And as we provide that context to humans, we also feed that into AI. So AI is more smart, it's more targeted, it's delivering outcome for you versus providing any generic guidance. Context helps us transform data into insights and action. So we had a need to transform. All of our customers told us over the last 15 years that the human-driven ops is not where we can win in the proactive game. We need to transform ourselves and shift left towards the customer. Our complexity has scaled out between services, dependencies, and incidents have much more impact now. They're spread faster. And that's just the nature of the cloud. Even all the services and announcement we did this week, that just add to that complexity. So unless we do something on the proactive side, we'll always be chasing in a reactionary mode, and we don't want to do that. We don't want to do that for our customers. Firefighting is also expensive. Every incident costs a lot in terms of human cost, in terms of business impact cost, and automation and intelligence is where we see benefits from AI to finally let us into the next age. This is not an evolution for us, it's a necessity. If we want to deliver outcomes for our customers like we would do for our own services, we had to shift. And that's why we changed our support portfolio. Now, as you learned about how we have shifted, what does it do for our customers? I'm going to invite Dwight Biddle from Whoop, who has been on Unified Operations, and have him share how they got the benefit from being on Unified Operations and actually that attained to their business outcomes. Dwight.
Thank you, Saurabh. So let me start by asking a question. Who here had heard of Whoop before attending the session? Great, we got some hands. I love it. Who here is actually a member or is wearing one? Nobody. All right, well, I'm going to predict that we'll change that by the end of the session. So let me start by introducing myself. That's not the right thing. There we go. So my name's Dwight. I head up the platform team at Whoop, and there's some statistics on the slide here. But to summarize, we're responsible for a high scale with a high bar for uptime, and we are also responsible for cost efficiency in the cloud. And above all, we want to make sure that we have a great developer experience and productive developers, and also have product security under our umbrella. So now let me introduce Whoop for those of you that did not raise your hand earlier. Whoop is a 24/7 wearable, looks like this, and it is centered around continuous monitoring of your health metrics. And what we really believe in is that we should be able to use the data that we collect to affect behavior change and make sure that we use the data that we collect about you to affect real change in your health and in your outcomes. So our mission is to, up until this May, was to unlock human performance. And with our most recent launch, which I'm going to talk a little bit more about, our mission is now to unlock human performance in health span, which expands from athletic performance to a more broad market of people who are more health conscious and thinking about their longevity. We also have a lot of data to back up that wearing a Whoop is an effective way to be healthier by working out more, by sleeping better and more, and by improving metrics that are highly correlated with health and longevity. So back in May, we launched 2 new pieces of hardware, the 5.0 and the MG. And these have over 14 days of battery life. I think it's up to 17 now. We keep making improvements. It has new health sensing technology like ECG. And we now have multiple subscription tiers, which allows us to appeal to our core, which is the more performance athletics-based group, but also go more broad market to people who care about heart health and health span. So if I take you on a trip to the past, back in September of 2021, we launched the Whoop 4.0. And this was a hardware-only product. So you would buy a piece of hardware once, and that was it. And then in May of this year, almost 4 years later, we launched 2 new pieces of hardware and 3 subscription tiers. And this, of course, is an explosion of complexity, and we needed to launch it all in one day. Everyone's favorite, right? The big bang release. So this is what the traffic pattern for our e-commerce site looked like on launch day. So great news, right? We saw lots of demand. But unfortunately, we were the victims of our own success. So we had all of this demand, all of this interest and excitement about the product, but we couldn't keep up. Our systems couldn't load to allow people to purchase, and then we saw delays in people getting their straps shipped to them. So while we did reach a new baseline, you can see, we wanted to, in our next release, remove the Valley of Woe that you see here and replace that with something that captures that excitement from the market and can catapult us into a new era for Whoop. So we worked hard with our partners in analytics and product and figured out what we needed to be able to scale to in order to exceed our wildest dreams in terms of demand and excitement. And it's worth noting that our mobile traffic is for existing members, and it's very high because we are constantly uploading, every heartbeat gets uploaded to the cloud. So this needed to be 10x what it is today. So if we see everybody go into the app at once, and then a lot of other people buy Whoop, we can handle it. We also wanted to make sure that we tested our e-commerce sites up to 200x. So this is a huge multiplier of our baseline traffic, right? So here's a timeline of how we prepared for launch. So one of the earliest things we did was we engaged with AWS Countdown Premium, which is a part of Unified Operations, and we did a risk assessment exercise. And that involved us sharing a lot of context about how we use AWS services, what is important to us, what really powers our business. And as well as they walked us through a structured exercise where we identified a lot of the risks of doing this launch and having all this scale. And that allowed us to, we were inspired by that, actually. We really loved the risk assessment exercise, and we actually applied it to mobile and to internal systems, and we did similar exercises. Along the way, we also began our trial of unified operations. We started with Countdown, and we said, "This is great. Let's try this beta product," and that included incident detection and response as well. When we engaged with them because of the response time SLOs are so much lower, and we were really excited about having that quick response time during launch, where on a launch day, every minute matters, right? And then once we had that list, we could then begin the process of, okay, how do we scale up to prepare for this kind of multiplier? And then how do we actually pressure test it? How do we really, I don't want to just say, okay, we've thought of everything. That's probably fine, right? There's nothing we've missed. No, we wanted to test it. We wanted to really throw everything at it. There we go. So this is another traffic graph. And this is a 15-hour marathon session. You can see this is 6 days before launch. That Friday the 2nd is May 2nd, 2025. So a little down to the wire. But we had a marathon session of load testing where we would turn on the load test and find a bottleneck. And then we would turn the load test off, fix the bottleneck, try again. And we would try this over and over, and you can see this slow, gradual process of we would remove a bottleneck and keep going. And a big aid to our success in doing this in such a short amount of time was that we had an RDS Postgres expert on the call with us the whole time. We had a container expert, and we had access to people through Unified Operations who allowed us to, you do need to change that RDS Postgres configuration because that's what's preventing this, and we could get that help right in real time. And I want to also point out, because I would love to do a whole talk just on this slide, expanded, but this traffic in the baseline here, that's our member traffic. That's real production workloads that we're throwing all this traffic at. And so we had to design a system that could mirror that traffic and make it look like organic traffic, but also be sensitive to the system starting to struggle and turn it off. So that super fun exercise. Happy to answer questions about it if you're curious. So then launch day. We all put on our Whoop jerseys and assembled on the war floor on May 8th and took this great picture. And this is us, monitoring everything, going over our dashboards, making sure we're catching things before they become a problem. We had an AWS room designated where we had our TAMs, and they were on the call with multiple experts from Unified Operations the whole day, actually multiple days that week. And anytime they saw something that seemed concerning, they would reach out and they could just pop their head out the door. If we had a question or we had a concern or we wanted to increase a quota, we could just open the door and ask. This was ultimately, launch was a great success. In fact, the entire month of May saw 100% availability, which was more than I could have asked for. But that allowed us to not only give customers a good experience on launch day when it was that spike in traffic, but also when they tell their friends and that friend opens the website and wants to buy one, or when they unbox it and they connect for the first time, they get that beautiful unboxing experience. And you can see that we didn't just hit a new baseline by doing this launch like we did with the 4.0 launch. We hit a new growth rate, right? Like we went from a growth rate that was starting to maybe stagnate a little bit to a growth rate that started to skyrocket. And now, as we've just gone through Black Friday, and we saw seamless Black Friday as well, which isn't on this slide, is a little too recent, but we're also really excited about the fact that we feel confident going into the Christmas season and having people unbox their Christmas presents and start their New Year's resolution and with the confidence that we can manage that scale. So just to summarize how Unified Operations enabled this launch success, I think the direct support we had by the people who were involved from the very beginning was helped us avoid the reactive support, as Saurabh mentioned earlier. And then if we did have an issue, which we did before launch, we had while we were trying Unified Operations, we had a critical case or two, right? And we were able to get faster response times and faster resolution times. And then having those context-aware experts that felt like an extension of our team was crucial in the planning process and the risk assessment process. So that is a good segue to the fact that we have not stopped getting value out of this partnership, and we have continued to do projects that make use of unified operations. And I've got a couple here to go through. The first one is an MSK Express migration. So we took a self-managed Kafka cluster and migrated that to MSK Express. Who here has managed a Kafka cluster and thought about migrating it to a managed version? No one. Wow. Okay. Well, I assure you, it's not something you approach lightly. But and this is our most critical Kafka cluster too. It's the one that is the first stop for all the data that comes off the strap and it's streamed to the cloud. This is where all that data starts and then spreads out to everywhere else that generates insights for the member. We were able to see 100K in monthly savings, which was fantastic. And then we saw less than a minute for broker recovery time, which previously, because MSK Express, if you're not aware, separates data from compute, the brokers were able to restart quickly, where before we would see these brokers take hours to come back up because they were rehydrating terabytes and terabytes of data. And unified operations was instrumental in planning and executing on this. We had expert guidance to help us make sure that they could review our plan, that that the solution that we were choosing was well designed and would serve us well in production. And then unified operations also helped us influence the roadmap of MSK, giving extra context to why certain things would be nice for us to add once we were on MSK Express. Another project that is actually still in progress today is an Aurora migration. Let's see if anyone here has migrated to Aurora before. All right, we got a few. Again, probably not something you would approach lightly. So we are in the process of migrating over 200 RDS databases, RDS Postgres databases to Aurora, and we're expecting this to save us around 50 to 100K. Depending on some choices we still have to make. And what I'm really excited about, besides the cost savings, is that we currently, if we want to do something like a minor version upgrade, we have to take 4-hour maintenance window and coordinate that across the company and make sure it doesn't conflict with a photo shoot with, Patrick Mahomes or something. And now we can do this in near zero downtime, and we don't have to coordinate anything, so that's very exciting. And then this was a great example of where all the context that we worked to provide to unified operations up front paid off when we went to do this project, because we got access to the exact same person who was so instrumental in that load test. He was able to help us with this migration project, which really felt like, again, like an extension of our team. And he was able to provide his Postgres expertise and be available for our planning calls or our actual migration day, where he would step through it with us and make sure that we were prepared and he could react with us. And then finally, we had a great May, but if you look at our H2 in its entirety, it was 99.85% availability, and we were able to reduce that downtime 70% down and achieve 99.95% availability in Q3 when we closed Q3. And that was enabled by our critical case response time in AWS going from around just under 8 minutes to under 2.5 minutes. And when we got those people on the phone, because they understood our systems already, they were able to help us resolve the issues faster as well. Again, context is king, as Sarah mentioned, and the context that they brought was crucial to getting help quicker. And having them involved in our migration projects meant that those projects were less likely to cause downtime as well, so that proactive support meant that we didn't have outages at all. And then, of course, we had the confidence of a shorter SLO that meant we would be able to react to things quicker. So if I were to summarize for you all before I get off the stage, a few takeaways that we discovered while partnering with Unified Operations. The first is that engaging proactively with this team and making sure that their team has awareness of our context and we've fed them all of the, our business-specific logic and how that sits on top of AWS. That helped us be prepared for launch, as well as these other big events that we've completed since. And it's not enough to just provide context once. We learned that by continually updating, because of course we have a dynamic system, we all do these days, by continually updating that as we make changes, that helps in combination with the response time SLO make the resolution time faster and allow us to have that high uptime. And then finally, as we did our work to migrate more and more things to managed services, the expert guidance that we got allowed us to maximize our cost efficiency and give us more cost savings. So I will now pass it off to Tipu, who's going to talk to you more about how it works under the hood. Thank you.
Thank you, Dwight. All right, how is everybody? Yes, whoop. Here we go. So there were these stories, these events that happened, that Dwight covered, that Saurabh covered, where humans delivered great support. Now, I'm going to dive into how we enabled these experts to do really well and the technology behind it as well. So let's take a look under the hood. One thing that I want to just instill right from the beginning, if I think back to especially our past 2 years, do durable investments of your time. We've already talked about context a whole bunch. And context is super important for us to solve problems. It's really important for AI to solve problems. But another durable investment of your time, of your money, is evaluations. It's because technologies change, models are going to change, frameworks will change. But the evaluations and the context that you have are really going to be durable. And you can use them to enhance your systems better for your customers. As we looked through our opportunities for efficiency and to drive better customer experiences, we knew that the best customer experiences were going to happen if we prevented issues entirely. So to ensure availability, to ensure that the paper cuts weren't there, the nuisances weren't there, improving the services themselves so that they wouldn't have problems. And so we heavily invested in this area of prevention. However, issues do happen. I did hear a page earlier. And when issues do happen, being able to solve that problem as quickly as possible is critical. And so that's what we looked into in terms of case prevention or full automation in the support world. However, there are also complex issues. Across so many services and across third-party partners, dependencies, applications, so many different things going on, there can be complexity. And in order to conquer this complexity, there is actually this really important role of scale, going across and getting a whole bunch of data, doing those reproductions really quickly. And this is where we found a lot of benefit, again, from AI and tool automation through it. And this is what is helping us drive the time savings and actual time to resolution, or mean time to resolution. Okay. Now, how we built it really came down to using what we already knew works and then trying to accelerate upon that. So, anyone ever worked with any playbooks or SOPs? Yeah, a little bit? Okay. I see a bunch there. So you can see this example on the top left, which is like a regular run book. There can be some commands. However, to really get it to run as an agent, or for an agentic execution to do this reliably as a tool in a way that we can trust, there is more of a structured format. There needs to be completeness as well. So we invested in moving these unstructured SOPs that we already had into structured SOPs using AI. However, there are two classes of these, right? So they're the ones that need to be deterministic. We have to make sure that it reliably works the same way every single time. And so we were able to convert the unstructured SOPs along with the integration tests into deterministic workflows and tools, as well as agents. And so agents can be very specific to a purpose, and they can call on a bunch of tools in this scenario. We also recognize that we need a lot more of this, right? So for us to be very highly accurate, we need to invest in very complete chains of thought for us to be able to solve issues accurately in a way that we could trust, in this first approach. So we also made an authoring platform. In the authoring platform, we're able to build the workflows. We're able to list out the steps in terms of natural language and then get them converted into things that are much better for models, right? Things that also have the complete integration test or evaluation set that I mentioned that's very durable. An example of an evaluation, let's just think like there's an EKS node issue and it's happening because of some lack of permissions. So we're able to actually set this up in an AWS account using infrastructure as code, have the agent figure out if it can solve the problem, and once it comes up with a resolution, actually implementing that in that account. And if it was able to solve the problem, then that's a pass, right? So it's a very complete evaluation in that scenario. And that's what we're doing for this SOP approach. Now, the way that this is being surfaced across agents, these tools and these SOPs, is via MCP. However, there's probably one thing you notice with this SOP approach. We really need our experts to come in, validate each approach. It's time-consuming, it's heavy. And when we're talking about 250 plus services, a lot of partners, a lot of complexities across operating systems, that approach is hard to scale. And so we also started looking at alternate approaches of scanning our corpuses of data. And so this included our existing pieces of knowledge, things that we had available from our partners, our existing SOPs, workflows, and automation, and our historical cases and tickets. We use this to create a data structure. And so the data structure here could be a graph, it could be a weighted probability matrix. And what it does, this data structure, using all this past knowledge, helps us to get from a symptom to a root cause. There can be a lot of different steps that happen in between. When you think about how an on-call engineer troubleshoots, they're seeing a symptom and then they're pulling some information, some tools to figure out if their hunch is right. And that might lead them down a different tree or a different approach. Going through this process is what gets us to the root cause. Now, we found a lot of success with this, and we're using this internally to make sure that we can solve issues really fast, particularly those really complex ones. And the really great benefit here is that because this is linked via MCP to those tools, we're able to confirm from the tool outputs that yes, this is in fact the right path to solve the problem completely. And then in the end, we can confirm if that actually does match the root cause based on the data signals, based on the customer input, and driven through the probabilities of past issues. Now, going further, this approach of agentic execution, iterating over tools, we want to improve on it further. And so we take this data, similar to the corpuses that I mentioned earlier, past issues, events, things that we have learned from ourselves, things we've learned from partners over our decades of experience, and we use that data and refine it and further enhance it with the other knowledge sources we can get, and then enrich it. So we have these complete chains of thought, this context on how to serve our customers better. Once we know how to serve our customers better, or we have this data, there's a few methods that we have found really work. So Swami went on stage, he announced a Forge. This can be used using reinforcement learning to train models. There are also other methods, and we've employed fine-tuning in this scenario to really get specific improvements. First of all, moving from a RAG to a graph RAG was pretty helpful. So instead of just retrieving knowledge in a specific way through chunks, having the graph-based RAG led to more richer knowledge retrieval. Second, for very specific use cases, fine-tuning models was useful. So with MCPs, you might have noticed that if there's a lot of tools and a lot of options that are available, there can be an impact on latency and even accuracy, right? Because the model has to go figure out which tool to use, and if it's hundreds of tools, which it is in the case of AWS, it can lead to latency and it can lead to accuracy. And so this is an area that we are working on right now in terms of using fine-tuning and also RFD in this approach. In case you don't know where to start with fine-tuning, LoRa has been pretty great. All right, so just to bring it together in terms of our approach, so we have many different channels in which customers can engage AWS support today. That includes in the console, chat, Slack, so already exists. And we have these coming into a central layer. As I mentioned, we also have been equipping our internal experts to be able to solve issues really fast. Dwight covered these examples of Postgres experts and Kafka experts that are solving problems. Behind the scenes, they have access to tooling, similar to what you might have. And this tooling, augmented by what agents give them in terms of more refined diagnostical outputs, they're able to solve issues faster and get root causes faster and be able to get more richer responses out to customers. Now, all these different channels, this data, this comes in, and if we had a single agent, which is how we started, for example, for general guidance, then it works fine. However, when there is an agentic system involving multiple agents, there is an orchestration layer that's needed. And so this orchestration layer, what it does is it selects the right agent for the job. And in certain situations, there are going to be multiple agents that are needed to solve a problem. To give a richer response, you might need to not just resolve a problem, but also come up with the optimization of how to prevent this from happening, or further optimizations which you might have uncovered as you're troubleshooting that first issue. So the reconciliation part is really important. One of the approaches that we took is that we broadcast the requests across multiple agents, and then we reconcile them into a rich response for our end customers. And so for AWS support, this is what it looked like at a high level. But the underpinning of this, the services that we used to really build a lot of this were Amazon Connect and Bedrock. So Bedrock really gave us the ability to have agents, and Agent Core has been pretty fantastic in allowing us to have runtimes and have gateways to just convert our tools into MCP. As I mentioned, MCP was a critical part of how we do this. And then we also have built a context service, which ensures that our agents can build this context needed to solve customer issues in a personalized way and do it reliably and securely with privacy in mind. One other piece I want to leave you with is that, especially for ensuring our governance requirements, for ensuring that we're sending safe responses, accurate responses, and this is an area we're continually working on improving, automated reasoning checks have been pretty useful. And this is part of Bedrock today, and it uses mathematical proofs to actually confirm if an issue, if something is out of bounds or something is not complying with the rules. Now, there are a lot of overlapping rules in logic, it doesn't work well. But when there's non-overlapping rules, it has really been fantastic at near deterministically being able to tell us if something is going beyond some safety check. So our guardrails are better with that. I also want to add that we also launched Bedrock Agent Core evaluations, which also allows easy evaluations out of the box. Now, Connect has been fantastic for us because It has many AI features that we've launched. So things such as if there's a lot of context that is happening between agent interactions and between customers, there's summarization that's available. And of course, things like live translation, which are great. Now, coming back to the previous slide, the success metrics that we looked at were prevention, full automation, and lastly, time savings. And with time savings, we really took the best of what AI had to offer us that we're iterating on and equipping our experts with it. Our approach throughout this whole journey has been to make sure that our experts in support are available whenever customers need them, but they have the AI agents and capabilities available to them, as do customers. So this is what it looks like. When you come to the AWS Support Center and you choose a specific type of issue, we're able to take that context from that case. We're able to see if there were past issues about the same type of problem. And if they are, we surface them. If there's any critical piece of information missing, we prompt back for that, in this case, an ECS cluster. We show that we're calling these agents that are checking the cluster health. And we're using the outputs from there to come to a root cause. And in this case, it was around out of memory for the agent, for the ECS cluster. And then we're able to give recommendations on how to solve it. We also launched the AWS DevOps agent just yesterday. And the DevOps agent is deeply integrated with support. A lot of it was built along with the lessons we have learned across our support experiences. And it also allows you to engage a support human when you need it directly within the ops web console for the DevOps agent. What it looks like is this. It'll pull out your topology, and this comes back to the point, that's the same point that Saurabh raised, that Dwight raised, that context is really important. So it'll extract the topology to understand how the application components work. It'll integrate with the important signals that are relevant. This is not just Amazon internal signals. This is not just what you might be using in AWS. It also includes integrations with many of our partners like Dynatrace or Splunk or Datadog, and using those signals, and ServiceNow as well, to bring out all these components together and actually get to root cause. So it's a part of your team, just like your on-call engineer, and it then uses these insights of past issues to prevent problems for the future. So it gives recommendations on what to prevent in the future. All right, so what have we learned? One is that working backwards from our customers, hearing from you all, we knew we had to transform the way that we are approaching. We need to be faster, we need to be more proactive, and that's what we're doing. We're transforming to deliver a better customer experience. So I have ordered my Whoop. Dwight has definitely convinced me today, so I'm going to get healthier. But just like I'm being proactive about my health, same thing applies here, that the proactive remediation is way better than waiting for it reactively. Yes, we should use the lessons of the past, which might be from reactive incidents, but we have to be proactive. We have to shift left to get better operational approaches and excellence. And AI is a big enabler for our humans. It doesn't mean that we have to use AI for everything, but where it really helps, it can really drive better improvements by bringing our human experts at the right times, giving them all the relevant context, and really allowing AI to be steered by our human experts, by you all, to solve problems more effectively and at a larger scale. Unified operations and mission-critical workloads, it's a match made in heaven. As Dwight shared for Whoop, it's really helpful in achieving these objectives of being proactive, of preventing these issues from happening, and having successful events and high availability. Thank you for your time.